whether you have breakfast in the morning or you have it at lunchtime, whenever it is, that first meal is a crucial one to try and stabilize your blood sugar. Otherwise, you end up fighting it for much of the day, right? But for any parents, right, who, I think this has real relevance to all of us. But let's say their kids are coming back after school and they are hungry and they want a snack. A lot of the snacks that are given are carb-based, right? So what advice would you give to parents in this situation? I guess you've given it with the close on your carbs, but it's such a common thing that I think it's such a simple way that parents can immediately impact their kids.
I have so many ideas. One is, if your kid is open to it, what if you gave them some leftovers from lunch? If your kid really wants to eat something sweet, then you have a few options. You can give them the sweet thing, but give them something else at the same time. So, give the cookie with some almonds. Give the Pop-Tart with a yogurt. Never let those starches and sugars arrive into the body naked, because then it's going to create a big roller coaster. And in kids, that roller coaster also has consequences, notably on mood, on energy, on irritability, tantrums, etc. So it's just as important. And all the hacks in the book you can use also, in your family.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that's a key point, Jessie, that a lot of parents may not be aware that, let's say, their kids playing up at 5:30, 6 p.m., 6:30, may not just be to do with fatigue. It may be to do with the snack you gave them after school.
Absolutely.
And I say that with all my heart, full of compassion, to say, listen, I just want to really shine a light on that for people to go, oh, wait a minute. There'll be someone who just heard that and thought, wait a minute, maybe that's why my son is playing up every night 2 hours after their sweet snack at school. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's really important.
And it's hard, we're not trained to understand how to connect the dots between the food and the symptoms, because there are a few reasons. First of all, like if you ate something sweet and immediately you had a panic attack and you fell asleep on your bowl, like you would know. You'd be like, oh, wow, it was that cereal bowl. But since it takes hours to see the impact and things compound over time, there's other stuff happening in your life, it's not always easy to play detective and be like, oh, this tantrum is because of the snack 2 hours ago. But it's quite an easy thing to test and it can't hurt, right? It
can't hurt for sure. Now, one thing I really wanted to talk to you about is the relationship between blood sugar and our moods. And of course, there's this whole idea that blood sugar, initially people think about it with type 2 diabetes, then they may broaden it out a little bit to think about other things to do with their physical health. But I think very few people across society are drawing a link between sugar ups and downs in their blood and their moods. And I want to go back to your story when you were 19. It's uncanny how many people who sit opposite me in the studio have had some major life experience at some point, which has meant that they've done something in some way, which means that they end up on a podcast talking about it.
It's the suffering, When you're suffering so much, you have no choice but to go and figure shit out. Excuse my French, but it's just out of that pain, you just really often just want to just find answers. I think that might be why there's such a link.
Yeah. Now, I want to talk about the link between blood sugar and the way you felt. Before we do that, as I was reading your first book, there was a really powerful section towards the start. You are explaining that experience, okay? And you were explaining the moments before you had to go into surgery. And I wrote it down. You wrote, if I could wake up on the other side of this, I knew I would be filled with gratitude for the rest of my life. Do you remember that moment?
Oh, yeah. I was so scared of dying. I was so scared. So I had broken my back 4 weeks ago. I had been transported in a medical situation all the way back to Switzerland for this operation in this clinic. And I had just been immobilized for, 4 weeks. And the doctors came in and they were telling me what they were going to do. They were like, okay, and trigger warning, it's a bit graphic. They said, okay, we're going to open your body from the side, take out all your organs, then find the pieces of the broken vertebrae, take them out, close the side, open the back, and then put this cage in, put the metal rods, drill some stuff into your spine, put the pieces back, and then we'll close you up. By the way, we might perforate perforate your, lung envelope or something. So you might wake up with a perforated lung, but hey, we'll try not to do it. Everything will be cool. You ready? And I was like, what? And I was so scared. And my body was in such a state of stress and there was nothing I could do. I could feel just this fear of dying that was so intense. But yes, I remember very well.
Well, what's interesting to me, first of all, thank you for sharing that. And that does sound, as you were describing that, I mean, that is huge.
Yeah.
You're 19 years old, you're being told in graphic detail what's about to happen.
Yeah.
That, of course, is incredibly scary. That part, if I get through this, I will be filled with gratitude for the rest of my life. Why that really fascinates me, Jessie, is big life experiences often happen to us. And in that moment, we think, if we get through this, I'm going to look at the world differently. And then we get through something, and for a few days, for a few weeks, for a few months, right? The memory is still there.
Yeah.
And we're feeling that intense gratitude. Given that was over a decade ago, do you still feel that gratitude? And where I'm really fascinated by this is, obviously, we had a coffee before we started in my kitchen. We were chatting. You seem to be someone to me who, despite an extraordinary amount of success in a short period of time, you strike me as someone who is really grounded, who's not let that attention go to their head, right? And I'm always fascinated what's going on in people who are able to do that. Is your accident, is that gratitude part of the story?
I absolutely think it is. And that gratitude from surviving the surgery, actually, it only lasted a few days, but the one gratitude that lasted forever and still I carry with me today is the gratitude of waking up in the morning and having my mental health be good. Because after the accident, after all the mental health struggles I went through, having my mental health became even more powerful in me feeling grateful. So let me give you an example. I'm in London right now and I'm staying in an Airbnb for 10 days by myself. And for years, I could never be alone. I could not sleep in a house by myself. I really couldn't be alone for more than 30 minutes because my mental health was so broken that I would get so anxious and scared of just existing. So to me, when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, wow, I'm actually okay. I'm alone and I'm okay. That drives me every single day, much more than the surviving the accident. That to me, if I had a day, my mental health was good, I didn't want to die, I didn't feel terrified about being alive, that's an amazing day. And to me, that is the biggest success, biggest wealth I could ever have.
Do you have a set practice to make yourself consciously aware of that each day?
Yes. Every evening, and I've been doing this for 4 years, I use an app called Dailyo, which is like a very sort of basic like journaling app. And every evening before I go to bed at 10 p.m., I rate my mental health on a scale of 1 to 5 in that app. And then I put a little entry about how that day went. And so I can show you on my phone afterwards. I have 4 years worth of daily, a little color per day showing my mental health. And no matter what happens, maybe I'll have like a difficult day at work. Maybe somebody will say I'm stupid on the internet. Like, it doesn't matter, because if my mental health was okay, that little rating in the app will be a 5 out of 5. They're different, completely different things, like the work thing and the success. And that's amazing. But ultimately, I go to bed every single night. And what matters the most to me is my health and my brain, and if I feel okay. Because I think it's hard to understand like the depth of the angst and suffering that I was going through. Being alive had become the most terrifying thing I could ever imagine, ever. So it's like if you're really scared of spiders, I'll get like a living tarantula from Australia and glue it to your forehead and tell you, you can't touch it. It's alive, it's moving, you can't do anything. I felt that way about life. Just being alive was the scariest thing. Being in a body was the scariest thing ever. Like, it went really far, the pain and the suffering. So today, the fact that I took the train for 2 hours by myself, I felt happy, I didn't feel dissociated, didn't feel anxious, depressed, scared of being alive. That's just going to be the best feeling ever for the rest of my life.
When do you think that started to change for you? That fear of being alone, that fear of being alive, when did that start to shift to, I'm okay being alone, I have gratitude now for being alive?
There were a few steps. I think one, learning about glucose was a very important first step in me reconnecting with my body and feeling and knowing that I could trigger those episodes of immense existential fear with glucose spikes. I was like, whoa.
Let's just pause on that a minute. I don't want to get in the way of your answer because I think it's absolutely profound what you're sharing. This is a point I don't think people get, that you're saying that feeling of an existential crisis, or let's broaden it out, panicky, anxious, feeling stressed, that can sometimes be because your blood sugar's going up and down, right? It's a biological, it's a physiological problem, not necessarily a psychological problem.
Being on a glucose roller coaster can trigger a vast range of symptoms. For me, it was these extreme episodes of anxiety and brain fog. Oh, brain fog is a fascinating topic as well. Brain fog would become overpowering, super anxious, super stressed, not okay. And when I first discovered that glucose spikes could be one of the triggers, that completely changed my life. Because instead of feeling powerless towards this symptom and this feeling, I was like, oh my God, wait a minute. You're saying that in the way that I'm eating, I'm triggering these moments? That blew my mind. And I finally felt like I had some power back. I was like, for 8 years, I had been a victim to this, not knowing when these episodes were happening, being too scared of being alone all the time. And then learning about glucose, it was the beginning of the rest of my life because I thought, hey, I can impact how I'm feeling. I can change these symptoms if I learn about my glucose levels. What a beautiful, powerful place to be.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I'm drawn to thinking about some of the trials on diet and mental health.
Yes.
Let's talk about the SMILES trial, for example, in 2017, when they showed depression can be influenced by a 12-week change in diets, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I've not read the paper for a while. I can't remember what's in the discussion at the end, but when they're querying what's going on here, I don't recall blood sugar being part of the conversation. I recall things like they're saying, could it be the omega-3 content of the Mediterranean diet in that trial? Is it the impact of all the diversity in plant foods on the microbiome, and that's an affecting moods? And of course, those things can be playing a role, but it could also be that you're eating an minimally processed food diet that's going to stabilize your blood sugars.
Yes, and there are studies maybe that have come out since then, I think, that show that the more glucose spikes you have, the worse your symptoms of anxiety and depression are. So that was the first step for me, being like, my food is impacting how I'm feeling, my mental health. And then when I studied my blood sugar, not only did these episodes happen way less, but also so many other things fell into place that I didn't even think were a symptom or a thing. I thought it was normal, the fatigue and the cravings and the pimples, and I just thought it was normal. So that changed a lot. But then I layered onto that. Once I felt like quite strong in that base, I layered onto that just amazing therapy, EMDR and the shaking and the everything and the journaling. And I started bringing together all these practices. And over time, slowly, I've been able to heal myself. And that is, to me, I'm so proud of it. Like, I'm so happy about it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
It's funny as you say that, as we record this, literally a few hours ago, the new episode with Bessel van der Kolk just went out. And in that conversation, he was chatting about EMDR and what a powerful therapy it can be for certain people in certain instances.
It helped me so much.
Did it?
Yes, it helped me a lot, really. It's quite amazing. And I used it for so many things, notably at the beginning for like that incident of the accident, jumping off the waterfall, before the surgery, having my first panic attack, all those moments with EMDR, I was able to go back and give myself the love and the resources and the tools and the compassion that I didn't have in those moments, and to process some of that, traumatic stuff.
You strike me as someone who is very open-minded.
Yeah.
You clearly are a disciple of science, right? You like to study, you like to research, you like to report on science and communicate it. But I think there's another side to you as well, that doesn't necessarily need to not fit alongside a scientist. And I really like that because you seem to be someone who's very spiritual. I don't know if you
very
describe
spiritual, yes.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people have the view that you're not you, but one is either, scientific or they're spiritual.
People love boxes.
They love boxes. Yeah. But you're someone who I think beautifully straddles both of those spaces.
And I'm also a musician, but that's totally secret. Nobody knows because the boxes thing, So right now I have my biochemist hat on, but I'm also super spiritual. And I also speak to my body and, I feel connected to the universe and I get insights and things that are not from scientific studies, but both can exist. I love that about myself, the balance, the contradiction as well. The contrast is really nice.
Yeah. I've heard that you like to ground.
I do. Yes, I
Me
love.
too.
You do too?
I do. Well, what does it mean to you? And now explain what it means to me.
Well, technically, actually, grounding is putting your feet or your hand on the earth, right? So I love putting my feet on the grass and just like feeling my nervous system calm down. And I started learning about the science behind it, which again blew my mind. Like when you ground, there are actual electrons from your body that go into the earth's nervous system and you connect your body and the earth's nervous system. Your nervous system, the earth's nervous system connect and regulate you. Like, hello, that's insane. That's so cool. And people say aliens don't exist. Like, guys, come on. Like, we're doing alien stuff. Like, how cool is that? And now we even know that has an impact on your glucose levels. A study that I just shared on my Instagram a couple of weeks ago showed that if you ground, and okay, this is a lot, it's for the study, 8 hours a day, too much, but it's for the study, you can reduce your glucose levels by 50 milligrams per deciliter. That's probably like 3 millimoles per liter.
That's a lot.
It's huge in people with type 2 diabetes. In just a week of doing 8 hours of grounding a day, nothing else has changed because it reduces your stress levels and it has all these wonderful side effects on your body. So yeah, I love grounding. It's amazing.
Yeah, for me, it's simply, I'm lucky enough to have a garden and pretty much every morning, particularly now as, we're recording this in February, right? But it does feel as though spring is in the air.
Absolutely.
Which means in the morning I'm out, I'm barefoot, I'm on the grass, I'm often drinking my coffee on the grass. And we have a phrase in the family because I always try and do it with the kids when they're up. And we call it power from the earth. As a family, that's what we call it. And to me, what does it do? Really, it's fascinating to hear the science. It really is. But a few years ago, I thought for me, I don't even need science for this, right? Yeah. I feel good when I'm barefoot on the grass, just as I feel good when I'm on a beach and I'm barefoot on the beach, right? It feels good to me. Yeah. And I feel like I'm someone who has lived much of my life in my head. And so I think grounding is not only literally putting my feet on the earth, it's also kind of metaphorically for me, it's rooting myself.
Yes.
It's like I really try and feel my feet on the ground, the pressure going into my feet, coming out of my head and into my body.
I love that. I have a very strong, I can't remember the word. Is it introspection? It's the feeling of being able to feel what's going on inside your body. Interoception. Thank you so much. And that I have that very strongly. And so when I'm grounding, I can feel, the energy moving from my upper body to my lower body. And I think because of my accidents in my spine and all that metal there was a sort of blockage. So it's really, really helpful when I go on the ground and I just feel that energy just, going down into my legs and connecting. It feels so nice.
If you enjoyed that short clip, I think you are really going to enjoy the full conversation, which you can check out here.